Welcome everybody to the Tuesday, May 20th, 2025 meeting of the Trent Hills Community Development Advisory Committee. I'm Deputy Mayor Mike Metcalf, and I'll call the meeting to order at 3:30 p.m. We would like to formally recognize the traditional keepers of this land, and specifically our neighbors of the Alderville First Nation. Welcome the Gunshot Treaty Lands of 1788. It is on these lands and on the shores of the Big Lake the Mississauga Anishinaabeg met with the Crown to facilitate the opening of these lands for settlement. Let us be reminded of the responsibility we all have in making sure that we respect these lands and waters that give us life and sustain our livelihoods. This Community Development Advisory Committee meeting is being conducted in person. The meeting will be live streamed on the municipality's meeting portal and YouTube channel. Moves us on to item 2 of our agenda. It is recommended that the agenda for the Community Development Advisory Committee meeting of May 20th, 2025 be received and approved. We get a mover and a seconder. Tammy, Heather, all those in favor? That is carried. Item 3, do we have any disclosure of interest? Seeing none, if anything does arise, please advise the chair. We have approval of the minutes. It is recommended that the minutes of the Community Development Advisory Committee meeting held on March 26th, 2025 be received and approved as presented. We had a mover and a seconder. Joe, Nancy, any discussion, comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Moves us right along to item 5 on our agenda, deputations. And we have a deputation today from Jimmy and Tracy Ioannidis.
It looks like an L sometimes.
I usually get that straight before I start the meeting. Jimmy and Tracy, if you want to come up to the podium here, and they're going to give us a presentation on KOK Cafe regarding the on-street parking space cafe. And the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for having us here today. It's nice to see so many familiar faces. We will jump right in. Hopefully I'm doing this right. There we go. So this is a proposal, obviously, for a parking space patio, which we'd like to move forward with. Fingers crossed we can get it done this year. If not, it's something we would like to work towards. Let's just jump right in. So we want to give you a brief overview and a proposal. Obviously, our objective is to form one of those parking spots into a vibrant outdoor patio experience. The benefits would obviously be economical growth, increased tourism, and enhanced community engagement. Parking spot patios offer several benefits to businesses and the community that they are in, including increased seating capacity, attraction for customers, and a boost to local economy. They can also enhance the pedestrian experience and create a more lively and engaging environment. Adopted in 2020 due to the pandemic, these patio spots have continued due to their success and their acceptance. There are over 2,000 parking spots, patios, from Toronto to Port Hope, Prince Edward County to Kingston. Within Toronto, $20 million in subsidies have been given to Toronto businesses for these types of patios, which have in turn generated $203 million in economical benefits for the city. So not just the businesses alone, but for the city itself. So, why a patio space? Well, to encourage outdoor dining and social interaction. Outdoor dining spaces like patios can be a major draw for customers, especially during the pleasant weather. Happy Cities, they're an urban planning, research, and engagement firm. They're based in Vancouver and Halifax. They have studies that show people are likelier to engage with each other and laugh while dining outside, creating a more vibrant and social atmosphere. Who doesn't want to be a part of that? Enhances the aesthetic appeal of downtown Warkworth or any place. Parking spot patios can transform busy streets into a more pedestrian-friendly space, creating a more welcoming and enjoyable environment for those walking or biking. They can also encourage interaction between pedestrians and businesses. Increased seating capacity is also something that we're looking forward to. By converting parking spaces into these patios, we can significantly expand our seating area, serving more customers at once. This can lead to reduced wait times, increased customer satisfaction, which we all want, and especially during the peak season. This aligns with global trends promoting walkable and pedestrian-friendly communities. As mentioned in our intro, we really want to keep up with the likes of Prince Edward County. All right, so environmental consideration. Want to reduces car dependency and promotes walkability. Will incorporate green elements like planters. Will provide shade options, umbrellas. Encourage eco-friendly tourism initiatives like cycling and walking. And we have additional, obviously we will have additional garbages and recycling containers outside on our patio to take care of that. Properly design and manage these patio spaces can help slow down traffic and make the street safer for pedestrians. They can also encourage drivers to be more aware of their surroundings by reducing accidents. All righty. Our proposal and location, this is you, mister.
So yeah, we're obviously just looking for the spot in front of the cafe. It's just over 20 feet by 8, and we're hoping to get 10 to 12 seats out there. And we've looked at a lot of different designs, and that's going to come up shortly, and a lot of different things, and you'll see some in the photos coming with regards to what it will look like, and that's something we're flexible with. So that's it.
All right, so there is our lovely location. That is the front of the cafe. Obviously, we live, most of you know, we're between the LCBO and Sunday's Company. It's an ideal spot for a parking spot patio right out front. That's the location that we would be looking for. Here are some samples of the MTO approved barricades. These are ones that definitely have more stability to them. We've also, as you will see through some of the pictures that we've provided, they range from, those simple barriers that you see at different fairs for, directing lineups and whatnot, to as simple as those plastic orange, bright, glowy things. So there's definitely options, and that's something, as Jimmy mentioned, we're very flexible. We want to do the best that we possibly can, and we're really looking forward to working with and making sure that we can do that with you guys. So I'll just scroll through some of these. These are very simple images that we've pulled from our travels through our investigations over the past year and a half. We've kind of really been wandering around and looking at different places, not partaking at all. This particular one, these ones are very simple. They're the wood devices. They don't actually have any MTO barricades. This one, it has this the orange kind of pylon-y, larger pylon-y style barricades that they have there. This one is also in Toronto. There's another one similar to this in the county that has just a beautifully done wood barricade, and then signage as well, reflective signage like this one here. So this is in the county. And that's also the county. Very clean, very pretty. And this one's in Belleville. So.
Yeah, my son and I did post this one afternoon. We pulled out the tables and put the chairs out there, and that's sort of the configuration we were thinking of. This is our old furniture. Likely we won't use that there. We'll look to get something a little nicer.
But it gives you a sense of the space. Yeah. So you can see there, as we said, we have 2 tables for 4, and then 2 tables for 2. So that's bringing, our tables, we have 8 tables inside the cafe, so we're almost doubling our tables, which would be great. One of the things we talked about is we know how slow January and February are for our businesses. It's very quiet. So, it's nice to make hay when the sun shines. So to be able to maximize on that and have that ability outside would be a huge benefit. do you want to speak to the concerns?
Yeah, we could talk about the parking lots. We're just talking about one spot, but there are plenty of other alternative places to park on the street, behind Bruce and Paula's, the accountants, beside Janine's. They have they have parking there as well. There's the Green Pea behind the Cheeky Bee. There's all the parking at the Millennium Trail. As the summer goes, there'll be, the school parking lot will be wide open. The arena parking lot is wide open.
We've also speaking with other merchants on Main Street and kind of to ensure that they can make sure that they're using their back parking instead of the easy pulling up to the front.
Yeah.
So that's helpful.
And that's something that we do.
We walk.
Yes.
We walk to
When
work.
we have to take the vehicle to work, knowing that we'll be going someplace after,
Yeah.
we scoot behind. Yeah.
Any noise, if noise is a factor in that case, we're closed at 4. The sidewalks roll up in Workworth at 4 o'clock, so it's, that isn't an issue for late night partying. We do have 2 events a month. We have our artist evening that is on the 2nd Thursday of the month, and we have our music night that's on the 3rd Thursday of the month, and those are closed down by 9. So that's something to consider as well. And obviously, we want to be very flexible with our design because we want to make sure that it's easy for removal during the winter months.
Yeah, and it's something I think what is it called, Cafe TO. I know I hate using the T word, but not Tracy, Toronto. They have the dates similar to when the things go off the street, like when the bike racks come down and when you can't park on the street again. So.
Yeah. So we'd keep that. And obviously, there is 0 cost for Trent Hills. Next is the economic benefits. So obviously, it gives visitors and locals alike another spot that they can visit in Trent Hills. We want to increase the foot traffic for all businesses within Workworth. And it's creating job opportunities. For us alone, we would look to be hiring at least 3 potential new jobs for people, hiring new people to bring that in if this was to move forward. And obviously simultaneously invest in local infrastructures and amenities. Okay, community and social impacts. Want to foster a sense of community by providing a shared social space, support local arts and cultural events, live music, the art shows, that's what I was speaking to. It would be nice to be able to have those open up and be out. It just really creates a great vibe within the main street. It enhances the charm and appeal of Workworth as a destination, and it encourages healthy, active lifestyle by promoting outdoor activity. And
today, we just came up with a small petition, and we had over 50 signatures in a couple hours in a village of 650 people in a few short hours this morning.
yeah, and by providing, I was like, why can't I read this? There we go. By providing outdoor dining opportunities, the patio can foster a sense of community and pride in the local area. It can also encourage residents to spend more time in their neighborhoods and support their local businesses. Some success stories. Obviously, we spoke about the economical success that Toronto had, going from $20 million to $203 million. We also know that Prince Edward County, Port Hope, Hamilton, Ottawa, Montreal, they all have success with these parking spot patios. The economical and social impact statistics, curbside patios produced 49 times more revenue than what would have been earned by parking fees. Now, thankfully, there is no parking fees in Workworth, so it's a win-win either way. And we do have testimonials from business owners and residents alike. There's full support from the WBA. When we started this, we obviously would have to talk with the new president. But the previous committee, they were 100% supportive of it, as well as the other Main Street merchants and Allen Insurance. And we do have that coverage for insurance as well, the $5 million. So
Yeah, I think Neil had a bunch of concerns in the first sort of round of emails that this was contained, and that was one of his concerns. And I think, well, we addressed all his concerns, we think, and that was one of the concerns that came up.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it. So from now on, moving forward, we want to have some sort of we want to have some sort of plan that we can move forward with. Obviously, that depends on where we net out from this. And yeah, that's it. So we want to thank you guys for listening to us. And if you have any questions, Jimmy can answer them.
Thank you, Tracy and Jimmy. Do we have any questions from the committee? Tammy?
Could you just go over just one more time the part that you talked about insurance?
Yeah, so I guess it was Neil's concern that we needed a certain amount of liability insurance, and I think we had 2 million, but we upped it to 5, which was required, and actually we were already there. And yeah, so it's all that is already in place.
Thanks. I was just asking the question because as the space and the road is maintained by the municipality, would there be a reason to have to add the municipality as a third party on your insurance?
Yeah, that would be something that would have to be written into a use of space type thing. And staff would be looking at that sort of thing if it proceeds.
Yeah, so just to follow up further, like this is the Cafe TO program. Vancouver has a program. I know there you don't have a program in place for any, like for this, but different communities are creating programs. They are creating grants. We're not looking for one, but theirs is kind of like the grants that you have for upgrading beautification. We've already used part of that for an awning that we did with Joe. So yeah, there's that, and then I don't want to bring it up, but you can charge us for this. There's fees in other cities to have these, and so it is a benefit to the municipality as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Thoughts? Nancy, go ahead.
That was a great proposal, thank you. I just want to comment how important it is to have extra seating for diners in Warkworth. Right now, we quite often have visitors want to go to the communities, and when they go to Warkworth, the more people that can dine there, the longer they're going to stay there and support other businesses as well. So I think it's really important, especially the amount of capacity that you're increasing. That's great.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think this is just for us. I think this is something that it should be open for everyone. People in Hastings and in Campbellford, in all of our small communities here. I think it's just a positive thing moving forward.
Yeah, and I think to your point, Nancy, it is a benefit because once they're sitting there and they're enjoying themselves, they're going to stroll into Sunday's Company. They're going to walk down to Trent Menace. They're going to hit Centre and Main Chocolate and experience the village a little bit more.
Yeah.
Thank you. Joe?
I just want to concur on that, having spent 5 years on that street, and that we always heard that from folks, that if there was a place they could sit, they would be happy to do it, and it's limited, so if the opportunity is there to provide it, I think it'll be beneficial for everybody. I think it's a good...
Thank you, Joe. Any other questions, comments? I do have a couple. One might be towards Kira. Do you want to take, I'm going to give the floor to Kira for a bit because she may answer the questions that I have before I ask them. So go ahead, Kira.
Thank you. I've been doing a lot of work around this and research, and during COVID, we did offer as a pilot this. Nobody took us up on the parking spot option. People chose the sidewalk option instead during COVID. And then we tried 1 year after COVID to see if we were going to extend it and turn it into like a policy or have a bylaw, but we didn't have any takers. So it's good to see that it's come back around because there has been success in other places, obviously. And I just spent the weekend in Prince Edward County, and the patios are out. One thing I did do some research on, and I don't have any numbers at the moment because the gentleman and I are playing phone tag, but there are businesses, vendors, where you can get those prefab ones. like all built with your approved barriers and space and stuff. So I have a lead and they do work out here. So that's something to consider for moving forward. Like the insurance, it's good to hear the 5 million is really important because it is a higher risk activity for sure, occupying a parking spot. So that is great to hear.
I think if I can just interject, one thing that benefits us during these summer months or spring summer months is that we do have the bike rack right next to us. So that's already a barricade on the one side. And one of the things that we've already had, the cyclists are here, they're already out. We've had multiple cyclists come in and, we were taking the opportunity to chat with them to see if it's something on their radar as well. And they were like, oh my God, if we can sit outside and watch our, $1 million, $10,000 bikes, that is a huge benefit. So knowing that that is the situation and that we have that one side is already barricaded or protected, so to speak, is a huge bonus.
Yeah, thank you. Kara, do we still have documents from those years that we had required structure for safety?
We have the basics because we never really got down the road far enough to have any plans from the building department. But I do have the info that the vendor has in terms of what the specs are. Obviously, accessibility is really important, and you do kind of have to, it's my understanding, you have to kind of custom fit them for your curb height. So you're going to make them, there'll be specifications, but then depending on what your curb height is, you might have to tweak it a little bit. And it does seem like that's what they do. Like that's what those vendors do. They kind of specialize in it, so.
When we were doing our research, I found those companies. I found them through actually there's, I think for your all benefit, if you can.
Easy Block?
Easy Blocks is one of the companies, but there was
a
a whole list of companies in a PDF provided by Cafe TO that talked about flower vendors, all approved vendors through the city that do all the little things that help you get to there. Like obviously, they might not come this far, but if there are people that are here, or even go so far as to, we can reach out to them and get their expertise and then try to bring it here and do it ourselves. So.
And I know further to that in Prince Edward County, they have two options. You can use a vendor and they have recommendations, and then they also will allow you to construct it yourself as long as you follow the specifications as provided by the building department. So there's some flexibility in terms of that, but just ensuring accessibility is of paramount importance, obviously.
In the research that we were doing, we looked at all that, read about it. It's in our brain. There's, with regards to even on the street side, you need an emergency egress, so that has to be there as well. So it's all stuff that we've read, considered, and looked into. Yeah.
Thank you. Rick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tracy, I think you answered my question, but you would like to put it right beside the bike rack, is that correct?
That's correct, Rick.
Okay.
Yeah, we want to take that spot that's directly out front.
Yeah.
I think the ease of people then, our staff traveling with the food, they're going straight out.
Yeah.
And I think it would just really complete the picture and just for the sense of
I'd hate to see a
ease.
space in between and somebody try to parallel park.
True.
That's good. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. One quick question, and this might be more just logistical if we get to that point. Are you looking at extending your licensing to that area? Or how does that?
100%. Like, haven't even messaged our AGCO rep because it didn't want to bother them until we got to that point. Of course, like we would have to do that as one of the steps moving forward. Yeah. And they might deny us, which, if they do, they do. We'll just have to restrict people, no alcohol in the front, and just inside and the side patio. Yeah.
It's my experience with special occasions permits as well as licensing permits. The AGCO is a lot more flexible now than it was, say, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. So there is an appetite to make it a lot easier to allow that sort of thing. And there would be some mapping and that sort of thing for Alcohol and Gaming Commission, but also for the municipality, just to make sure that everyone knows your licensed area. But it's just a step. I don't think it would be onerous, but it's something to keep in mind.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like, we dealt with them, we dealt with the fellows below, and to get our license initially. So that's you know, it's a process
step,
where.
baby steps.
Yeah, baby steps, one step at a time.
Perfect. Any other further comments or questions? All right, our recommended motion is be it resolved that the information presented by Jimmy and Tracy, ioannidis. Oh.
I used to call Jimmy
Onionitis. Ioannidis. Be received for information. We got a mover and a seconder. Nancy, Sarah, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much for coming today and giving us your proposal. It's great to hear.
Thank you guys very much for listening to us. We appreciate it. Take care.
Perfect. So that brings us on to item 6 on our agenda, and 6A is a summary and items for discussion regarding the draft bylaw to regulate and govern the display and or sale of merchandise on municipal property. It is CDAC-0 or 2025-001. So there is a few updates on that. Kira, are you taking this floor or am I passing it to Cameron? Kira, how about you introduce it and then we will bring planning in after that.
So you have my staff report in front of you, which has the old or draft 1 of the bylaw attached. The second attachment is draft number 2. And the highlighted things in draft 2 reflect the changes that were made. And those are a reflection of our conversation at our March 26th meeting. You'll see in the, I can never remember what we call these categories on these things. In the analysis option section, the last part kind of has a little bit of a checklist or a to-do list for us as a committee in terms of those things, items to be decided or considered. Specifically, and I think in the draft, we did update it to say just merchandise, as merchandise is defined term, and then for consistency, it just says merchandise throughout is the plan, or so it should, unless we missed one. So basically, and Mike and I were talking but just before the meeting, like there might be an example when there would be a partnership opportunity with 2 stores where they would come together and sell the thing that, you know, Karen has at her store and I have at mine. We're going to sell, you know, so you don't necessarily want to be so prescriptive as like thou shalt only sell things from your store. So we want to leave that opportunity for collaboration and, you know, the innovation that our entrepreneurs on our main streets have. So that's one thing to consider when we're making the definition. We don't want it to be so tight that we don't have any wiggle room, but we also don't want the definition to be 4 pages long. So there's kind of finding the balance there. Question about if we limit the number of things or how we kind of control that Pandora's box of sure, you're allowed to put things on the sidewalk, but one way that I have noted is that we just focus on the clearance. And so if it looks presentable and attractive and you still have that required clearance for accessibility, is that sufficient? And how should we capture that? And then finally, there is, I mentioned that sandwich boards. I want to call them sidewalk boards for some reason every time. They are covered in the sign bylaw as well, so it's almost a situation where it's a bit of a double permit situation, because there, you can have a permit that you're allowed to put things on the sidewalk, but you'll still need a permit for a sidewalk sign. So just how we capture that, if we need to be explicit about that, those kinds of things, because I know that sidewalk sandwich board signs came up a couple of times in our discussion. So that kind of is an overview of what this report captures, and then the draft 2 captures the changes.
Thank you, Kira. Cameron, do you have anything that you need to add?
Kara covered the major points. I guess the one thing to bring up was, from the last meeting was, as of right now, the reason this is coming forward is sidewalk displays of any sort aren't permitted. We've not enforced them recently, but there is no policy to support them, or of course, the insurance part of it as well. So that's sort of why this is being brought forward. It's not to stop what's being done, because what's being done isn't technically permitted, though we haven't, as I said, enforced it. And the sidewalk, or I almost did the same thing, the sandwich boards are under the sign bylaw, so there was a bit of overlap with that as well, but they were permitted through that process, and there were permits for that. But I think if there's, well, I don't have anything else to add to that, but if there are any questions, I can help answer in place of Steve.
Thank you. I will open the floor to the committee for comments or questions. Sarah, go ahead.
So is there not a way that we can incorporate one permit instead of two? If somebody wants to put up merchandise and a sign, they have to do 2 permits, pay 2 applications, even though this is covering signs? Just curious.
Yeah, it's something to look into. The sign bylaw is covers a lot more than just sandwich boards. But perhaps there might be some will sort of fall under this. The way that the second draft is written, Kira did mention, it does say merchandise throughout. I am assuming that that does not include, say, a bench or a planter or a sandwich board. So again, that's still up for discussion. Further comment, or are you good for now? Okay. Rick?
So are we looking at a $50 permit for a sandwich board?
Through the chair, I believe that's what's required right now under the fees and charges, and it is because the building department has to go out and inspect. They do have to visit the site, confirm it's in the right location, I believe, is the logic behind that, and it would apply to the same for the rest of the sidewalk display, that it is time that staff goes out. I do believe it does mention that it's going to be waived for the first year it does get adopted, but I believe that's under the fees and charges bylaw right now.
I just don't like the thoughts of charging a business money. That's just me, I guess, my own feelings on it, because I think we should be trying to help them more than anything.
I don't like the idea of paying the business.
Yeah, so I don't know, that's just my thoughts for a sandwich board, like, you know.
It could be that you want to go ahead?
Oh, I'm just going to say that I think we could take sandwich board signs, planters, like any other sort of accessory items, and probably work them into this bylaw so it's all covered together. Just add another definition that incorporates all those items.
Without a fee.
Well, right now we're looking at an annual fee, which council has the ability to waive for a certain time period.
Okay.
Nancy?
So just following up on what Jim said there, so the way this proposed bylaw is written is just covering commercial items for sale or service, correct? So right now, I think that would impact probably 3 businesses that do that full-time in the downtown. If we were to all of a sudden add in garden furniture, all those other items, then we're back to where we were when all the presentations were made about how difficult it'd be for the $5 million insurance, the permit fee. So I think if we look at going in that direction, then we're back to where we were.
Kira?
Yeah, so I think that the issue then is both of those things represent sidewalk use. And so it's figuring out how we kind of ensure or like administratively check that they have insurance. Because at the end of the day, that's really the municipal kind of inspiration for this, right? And so it's figuring that out in terms of how we, you know, outside of maybe a person and a check and a clipboard, figure out, because it is an entirely, I've already had questions from people like, should I buy the flowers for my planter? Am I gonna be allowed to have the planter? And I was like, we want you to beautify your building, like, yes. And the clearance in the summer is quite easy for a planter. Like, it's not, the snow removal is a challenge for those kinds of decorative items. But in the summer, obviously, we don't have to worry about that. So it's figuring out the balance of, because for the most, you're right, there isn't that many vendors, we'll say, businesses, that use the sidewalk on a regular basis for displaying of merchandise. I think if this bylaw came into effect, you might see more because it's allowed, or it could be allowed, because I know that I've had people say, well, I'm not allowed to use the sidewalk without getting the sidewalk use permit. So it's one of those things, it's about folks who like rules, like to look them up and follow them. So yeah, I think that's the crux of it, is like how do we keep track, ensure that we're protecting the municipality from risk and also supporting businesses to be able to beautify and sell their wares? Because it is, you're absolutely right, I think it's two things.
Thanks, Kira. Joe?
I think I understand what you're saying, and to me, I think the beautification part is the part that you want to promote and keep. As far as inspecting or permitting, it's a bit of a moving target. You know, I might put my sign here this week and here next week, or, you know, I'll put another pot of flowers out. That's never going to be something that is permanent. But I would have no issue if somebody needed proof of my insurance for unable to do that. So I don't know if there's a way to do it that way. I agree with Rick that anything that starts affecting costs for businesses it's a deterrent, I think, to compliance even. So that's my 2 cents.
Tammy?
Just a question regarding the bylaw. I'm not sure if it's in there or it's a necessary thing. Is there some sort of a component that, with regards to accessibility, that conforms with like any, if any, AODA compliant regulations or anything?
Yep.
So that, part of that is the clearance that is needed. So it's sort of broken down into two. We've got, in the bylaw, it's 3A. The 1.8 meter clearance is for winter clearings specifically, and the 1.5 meters is what is necessary for accessibility, which would go in line with the AODA.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious as to if there's a specific area you can put your sign here, but not here, and whatnot.
And I mean, some of those are probably going to be dependent on the individual space, but I believe, and Cameron, correct me if I'm wrong, if it's within that 1.5 and it's not impairing vision for traffic, say at an intersection, that type of thing, then it would be compliant, correct?
I don't know too much about that because it's mostly do you have something to add, Carrie? I saw your. Yeah, it is, Steve has mostly worked on the changes. I do believe there is a ability for a bit of leeway in some circumstances where it would be up to the chief building official or whoever they've assigned to look at it to say, yeah, in this case, that there's not going to be an issue with clearance because of, you know, there's something else that would benefit it. Do you have something else to add, Jim?
Yeah, I think it works in most cases. I took a chance to look at Street View for all the downtowns, and a lot of the sandwich board signs, they put them out like at the edge of the curb, like on the boulevard part. And so all you have to do is remember that, okay, do I have a planter or something that's in tight to my building? So, try to just maintain where they're positioned so that 1.5 is always there so people can enjoy both the information, the beautification, and get in very easily. I just, in looking at all this, I mean, there's not a lot of issues out there. It's very well done. We just want to identify a bylaw that's already supporting what the businesses are doing. And it's basically about liability for everyone and making sure everyone's in a good position if anything happens.
Thanks, Jim. Go ahead, Tammy.
So I just wanted to clarify a comment that you had made earlier, that the fees would be waived for 1 year from council for any business that wants to partake in this, but then the fee would kick in for the businesses the second year?
As staff, we've only put forward ideas for the committee to consider. Whatever you recommend to council is your recommendation.
No, thank you. I was just kind of concurring with Councillor English's, the businesses being just on survival mode right now.
Just let me, thinking about this and hearing the discussion, I think perhaps there should be something should be recognized where we want to make sure that, the business has the liability. It's great, you're putting out your flower stand, you're putting out your magazine vendor boxes, you're putting out something decorative. That's, you've got your insurance, great, all's good. We don't need a fee for that. It's only like you want to put out a big display of merchandise. We just need to know a little bit more about that, and that's where it'd be up to the committee to recommend how long before you want to give businesses a break in terms of the fee and that. That's the way I see it happening, is sort of the same way we have a two-part component with the clearance now, we'd have a two-part components with the items that we're talking about and what the fee would apply to, what the fee wouldn't apply to, and then up to council as to how long that period is or gets extended to be when they don't charge for permits.
So just to kind of not wrap up, but look at this, it appears as if we have storefront beautification versus merchandise sales. We've kind of gone into two sort of separate categories. And perhaps storefront beautification would, because it's an insurance requirement mainly is what the necessity of that is, perhaps that would be an application or a declaration that you will be doing storefront beautification, and that would only perhaps suggest a proof of insurance, and your address or the simple sort of stuff. So that would be, to me, a declaration of storefront beautification. Really just to say that if something does happen in front of you, and it's both for the municipality and for the store owner, that they are looking after themselves on the liability of what may happen. The other one, I would say, is more towards what this bylaw is written at, which is the merchandise sale piece. Does that make sense as to sort of where we're going with that? So what we're looking at coming out of this is we'll have a summary of the discussion, but we're looking at a recommendation to take to council. So that's something that we need to think about in the next short period of time while we're looking at this piece of the agenda. So those questions that you had on should we do this, why are we doing this, that sort of thing, those are the same things we need to answer for our recommendation to council to be approved. So I'll open the floor again for comments or questions on that. Nancy?
Just want to clarify the 1.5 meters. That does not include the boulevard, but I believe the 1.8 meters does include the boulevard because that's where the snow goes.
Yeah, I believe you're correct. And I mean, obviously in the wintertime, there's a lot less items on the street. People, the business community recognizes that snow clearance is going on. If things are out, they're bringing them in, they're putting them out after the sidewalk's been cleared. So yeah, we need that boulevard area for snow storage between the street and the sidewalk as everybody's plowing, as they did this past winter.
And then just a comment as well, talking about the $50 fee and added expense for businesses. For those businesses that only have $2 million insurance, there's going to be an added expense as well if the $5 million requirement is there.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, or recommendation? Joe?
It's not really specific, but I'm just, you know, as we're considering parking, opening that up, I feel like if we make it something that is of an encouragement to people, that kind of makes like we're moving this whole agenda forward in terms of the space outside of our businesses. So I think it probably affects a few things of how we look at our streets and businesses. That's all I want to say.
Nancy?
I forgot to mention, is this an option that when there's a parade on or an event, is that kind of like a pop-up scenario where they could have maybe giving out apple cider or something during a special event when there's something going on in the streets, but not necessarily closed?
Yeah, maybe it's not clear in this bylaw, but pretty well all the bylaws we write that regulate things, there's an exemption during events. So if, you know, it's a community-wide event anywhere in Trent Hills and all the businesses want to participate in a certain way, yeah, we recognize that that's a special occasion and this is not applicable at that time.
Although we should always still be aware of the accessibility needs of a sidewalk. Yeah. Tammy?
So you're saying an exception would be made for a pop-up and they wouldn't need an event permit for that?
So a pop-up, one I'll put is Hastings has a community yard sale. They've had it for a few years now. In that event, the business could participate and not have to do this specifically the bylaw and go through that. It would be an event that the whole community is participating in, so that would be an exemption. A pop-up would, I mean, so long as, I don't know what the term for a pop-up would be, but I mean, that would be sort of the pop-up event would be outside of your business, not necessarily a full-on 10 by 10 tent necessarily, if it permits, perhaps, but Jim, go ahead.
We've got an inquiry right now that we're working with that wants to have one for the whole summer, so obviously that would fall under the aspects of this bylaw that apply to that situation.
Does that answer that question?
Sorry, I guess I'm just a little confused in that one part when you're saying if it's a pop-up event, then there's an exception that they wouldn't have to get like a regular event permit. Is it based on who organizes it or who does?
No, that's not the event. That's what we're just, it's the business, if they want to partake in the people being at the event, then they can partake in putting something out front, that sort of thing.
Okay, so it's above and beyond an event.
The event itself is a separate sort of discussion, and it may or may not require a permit or an application at that point.
That's the answer.
But just to add to the your storefront for that specific event, yeah, it would be an exception.
That's the answer I was looking for.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just looking for some clarity around when you say there's a community event, is whose definition of what that community event is that they could participate in? Is that a community event that's, if it's in Warkworth, it's a Warkworth event, or is that a Trent Hills event?
Well, I'm going to sort of step out here and say, if it is in Campbellford downtown core, then you would participate in that Campbellford downtown core event. If it was in Hastings, then it would be specific to that sort of area. If it was in Warkworth, it would be specific to that area. I mean, the one that would encompass all three at one time would be Canada Day, because Canada Day, all three communities have something going on, albeit generally at different times of the day, but Canada Day is a full municipality of Trent Hills. I can't think of any other event that has happened in the past that necessarily takes in all three simultaneously at the same time. But I would say it would be specific to sort of the area that that event was happening.
And I'll just add, like, a good example of that is you can't have a food truck in the municipality of Trent Hills unless you have a mobile vendor license. The exception is if it's a special event that is approved by council, then the organizers are allowed to invite food trucks who don't have Trent Hills licenses. So it's kind of that it does change the rules a little bit about what we permit to happen. So it would be, for example, in the past, when the BIA in Campbellford wanted to have a sidewalk sale, the way that the current policy is written for sidewalk use, each individual storefront would have to get a sidewalk use permit. So we've actually gone to council to ask permission to let the BIA have an event that would have sidewalk use throughout the zone. So it's a similar kind of, this would be a similar way that we could let that kind of sidewalk use happen in conjunction with an approved event.
Any other comments, questions? So the way I kind of see this is the recommendation to council is we're splitting merchandise sales versus a storefront beautification. And then the only other, I guess, overarching piece is the fee. But that's sort of always already written in here as a recommendation to waive for 2025. And the insurance level. Anything else that we discussed that I didn't encapsulate there? Seeing none, I'm going to read, do I need to read this recommendation? Yeah. It is recommended that staff report CDAC-2025-001, Kira Mees, Community Development Manager, summary and items for discussion regarding the draft bylaw to regulate and govern the display and or sale of merchandise on municipal property be received, and that staff provide council with a summary of the committee's discussion and recommendations. We have a mover and a seconder. Sarah, Joe, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. This moves us on to item 6B, downtown revitalization and business development parking requirements. So we got some more information coming here with our final parking survey summary. Kira, did you want to talk about this one?
Do I? And then Cam probably will too. So we did take the big onerous list of data and whittle it down to 5 pages. Item number 1, we already dealt with last time, strong opposition to paid parking, which we took off the table when we were talking last time. I think that this 5-page synopsis does a better job of kind of capturing the feedback. Thinking about the presentation that we had earlier, it is one of those things that did get it got a pretty clear no on the feedback from, but there were also, in terms of the comments, those that took the time to make comments, the folks that were for it were pretty passionate about it and really echoed all of those things that Jimmy and Tracy talked about today. So that's kind of the one thing that came up. I also wrote some notes that I think we do have some pretty like quick win opportunities in terms of addressing some of the concerns. I think a consistent thing is consistency, like that if you are gonna have changes to parking, that it be consistent across the board, so it's very clear. I think it's pretty clear that signage is something that people have mentioned a lot, clear signage and direction so folks know what parking is available, what's municipal. Something that wasn't mentioned too much in the feedback but I know is an issue that we face internally every year when the winter control bylaw happens is where those folks who do live in the downtown, where can they park? And so that kind of might be the tiny little bit of paid parking that we have to figure out in terms of how we can work with property owners and landlords in the downtown and figure out a way that there can be something arranged for those folks so that they're not always getting parking tickets or being in the way, getting warnings and all of that. So that is a fairly specific subcategory of parking concerns, but it is something that comes up in each of the communities where people who live in downtowns don't have assigned parking for their units. What am I forgetting, Cameron?
You covered the major points. I've done my own manual analysis. As Kira mentioned, for the use of parking spaces, on-street parking spaces for other uses, there was a significant no from the general public mostly. Could just be that it is changed and that's what they don't want to see. Looking at the concerns and all the comments for that, the majority of that is just related to capacity. So if there was capacity elsewhere, if there are more off-street or parking lot spaces that were accessible nearby, perhaps then that would make it more receptive to the public. They are worried about losing the convenience spaces along Bridge Street, along Main Street in Warkworth, Front Street in Hastings. That was their primary concern. I think about 66% were in that range, 60 to 70% were opposed to them in general, but looking at their comments, it is mostly 80% of that is just about capacity. Looking at the overall, which was one that wasn't, I don't think included in that report, that's something I've done manually, is the 34% say there are no issues with the current parking, and 32% say it is a capacity proximity issue. The other major issues that popped up were enforcement. Enforcement came up quite frequently in the survey results, with just people that misuse the system or park for too long, don't get tickets, or manage to dodge tickets, however they. So those are that's probably the third highest. Next highest was maintenance and specifically snow removal. That's especially this year where we had a lot of snow this year, more than the previous few years where it's been somewhat mild, or we only had 1 or 2 snowfalls. We had a lot this year, so that raised the attention. Then the next one was accessible parking, as well as that misuse of parking spaces, which was where we would probably see the paid parking, where it would be owners of apartment buildings or rental units, or that would have to enter an agreement with the municipality for a specific spot that we'd label, and it would be their private space on municipal land, and that would be where we would have to use paid parking just to manage that and to assign them that spot, and then use that funding to upgrade parking elsewhere, pave those lots and maintain them for what would normally be a private parking spot on a private lot where they'd have to maintain it themselves.
Thank you, Cameron. Any thoughts, comments, discussion on parking? I have what information are you looking for us to give to you on this? It's a bit, I'm having a bit of a difficult time really determining what you're looking for.
Well, it's interesting because I think one thing because we had combined this parking survey with also questions about parking minimums as connected to zoning. We learned right off the hop that was not a good idea because parking minimums are very misunderstood. And we had that presentation from Mike, if you'll remember, a few meetings ago, and about how that kind of system is outdated. And so that is something we've kind of hived off. We didn't really include in the summary because it needs to be kind of studied by itself. So that's one thing we took off the plate. I think the direction is really around how we can streamline and make it more straightforward, because we definitely, the mindset is that we don't have enough parking. The inventory tells us that we probably do. And so I think a lot of it is figuring out what is the best way forward in terms of how we are consistent in our signage and our timing. And then I really think a big part of it is going to be educating the public and just communicating out that there's been some minor changes, because for the most part, whatever kind of timing we decide, I think something in the ballpark of kind of controlling it, limits during a business hours, so that we are encouraging folks like Jimmy and Tracy said, not parking on the main street if you are a store owner or a staff person or you live in the downtown. So something like a 2-hour limit between 8 and 5, something like that. And then afterwards, having it open again to encourage people to come and stay longer, and maybe they're going for dinner and the movie or an event. And so we don't curtail those kinds of after hours timing. And it also does then lead well, because typically, at least at this point, we wouldn't be doing after hours enforcement. So it just kind of aligns with what our current practice and staffing capacity is anyway. So it doesn't make sense to make a bylaw that we can't enforce, but we do, for those challenging time periods and specific zones that are really, no pun intended, kind of high traffic, something that's consistent and well communicated is what the main solution I think that we're looking for.
Okay, thank you. Rick?
Just so the committee members know here, I know the WBA sent out emails encouraging owners of the store to park in behind their buildings as well. I know that there is about 2 or 3 on the main street. And so they have been told if they could please park in behind their business, which they are doing now. So that was helpful too.
Yeah, I think that messaging is good messaging. If, as a business owner, I wouldn't want to take up prime real estate in front of my store all day. But that's my mindset. I would find a spot. If that required walking a few blocks, I would walk a few blocks. But if that's the messaging that needs to be sent, then that's, yeah. And that can be done, like you said, through limited parking time periods, 2 hour, that sort of thing. I think we've put a fair bit of discussion into this previously, and I believe this is something that staff has to take a deeper dive into. It's more than just one specific parking item. This is a number of parking items that need to be brought all together. Like you said, looking at the inventory, putting that with parking limitations, that sort of thing. So, and the required minimums with building and planning as well. So, Kira.
And just one more thing in terms of the parking spot use for other uses, like a cafe, for example, that will have to be decided on a case-by-case basis anyway, because there are numerous properties that might have the desire to have a parking spot, but for a variety of reasons, it couldn't happen. And we experienced this during the COVID pilot, where there were certain businesses that really wanted to have something on the sidewalk, and there just isn't the space. And so it would be the same if we did do some kind of pilot around a parking space cafe use. It would, even if we had a bylaw and a policy in place, it would still have to be approved on a case-by-case, just based on their proximity to intersections and all sorts of things. So even if you think about Hastings, where they do the stall parking, like it's a whole, obviously, different orientation there. So like it is that issue on its own will kind of require its own deep dive and figuring it out. And I imagine it, if it is supported by council, that still having it as a pilot might be the way to go, to try a couple and see and get some real feedback and revisit it again, because it's very impactful in terms of, for both positive in terms of animating the space and all those great reasons, but you do lose a spot and there's impacts to traffic and pedestrians and stuff as well to be considered.
Thank you, Kira. Any final comments, questions? I think staff have a lot to go with at this point in time, and I believe that there's a fair bit more work on this to happen anyway. It is recommended that the final parking survey summary be received and that staff provide council with a summary of the committee's discussion and recommendations. Mover and a seconder, Tammy, Heather, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried, thank you. This brings us to item 6C, Campbellford mural strategy, and I will pass this over to Kira to present it.
We've been working on this for a very long time, Nancy and I, and this particular version of murals in Trent Hills, this one specifically murals in Campbellford, came about, as you probably recall, the Rotary got some calls about it, and the BIA is also keenly interested, so we had a meeting to do kind of a Campbellford focus, but obviously this is something that we can roll out across Trent Hills using the same strategy. And the community improvement plan funding is something that interested parties who want to put their mural on a commercially zoned property would have access to. So that's already in place. So we're really quite a long ways down the road. So it's just a matter of, we would have had this done last time, but we ran out of quorum. So it's basically just having this as the template of how we are going to move forward and promote. And it's one of those things that's very top of mind for me. I have a municipal spot already picked out where we can put one, and I think maybe we have to lead by example and make that happen. So it's on my to-do list. So this just, for me, is a nice roadmap that Nancy and I and the other kind of business and community associations can use within their networks to get the ball rolling, because they're one of these things that everybody wants one, but then it's like, oh, they really cost a lot of money. They do. And it's worth doing right. And so we have this, and then we also have all the guidelines that we created for the CIP in terms of best practices for murals. And we also have a lot of artists in the community who have let me know that they would gladly be on a panel and help kind of adjudicate subject matter if required. So I think we're there.
Thank you, Kara. Yeah, it's quite an intense document on how to get murals up, but I think it's important to put those into public spaces. Any comments, questions on the document? Nancy?
Just adding a comment, when we put it together, we're meeting with the Rotaries, so they're identified in there as a community champion. But that was just as a template, as Kira mentioned. There's no expectations for the Rotary Club to take all that on, but it was just a template that we created.
Thank you. Any other? Tammy, go ahead.
This question is for you, Kira. So the mural, money for the mural is included as an option for CIP. What is the percentage of funding?
So it's 50% funding of eligible expenses. It falls under facade improvement. So the upset limit for a facade improvement is $5,000. So if the pre-tax investment was $10,000, then you could maximize the grant amount for $5,000. And so, and I have a full spreadsheet in terms of properties that have accessed it. So we keep close tabs on it. And we're very lucky that it's a well-utilized program, but we also have a healthy reserve. So even if we were to get a really enthusiastic uptake and we managed to fund, 5 or 10, we would still be okay, and we wouldn't break the bank in terms of our annual budget, which is $75,000 annually. So it's a very well-supported project by council, and it's really, and we are on year, I think this is 12, 13 years. It's been a long time, so.
I think it's a great bonus to have mural included in the CIP, because kind of falls under also beautification. And then you're also supporting local artists and sharing the wealth of the money, you know?
Something to remind committee is that we have had the discussion when we were looking at CIP. We questioned at the time whether that 75,000 was still current annually for the amount of projects, and we had left it at the time, but it is something that we'll always look at to see if we need to increase that for those projects as well. Any other comments, questions? Excellent. So it is recommended that draft downtown Campbellford mural strategy be received and that staff provide council with a summary of the committee's discussion and recommendations. Mover and a seconder. Joe, Sarah, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We have no communications this afternoon, and that brings us to our adjournment. It is recommended that we do now adjourn at 4:40 p.m. Mover and a seconder. Nancy, Sarah, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, everybody.